The phone rang, and I hesitated for a moment before answering it. I hadn't spoken to my granddaughter in 6 years, not since her mother passed away. The pain of that loss still lingered, and I had often wondered what could have been if things had turned out differently. But as I picked up the receiver, I steeled myself for the conversation that was about to unfold. "Grandpa, it's me," she said, her voice trembling. "I'm in big trouble." I felt a surge of concern and asked her what was wrong. There was a pause on the other end of the line before she spoke. "I'm in debt, Grandpa. $50,000 debt. I don't know how to pay it off." The number echoed in my mind like a ticking time bomb. I had always been a man of my word, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being pulled into a vortex of trouble. As I sat down at the kitchen table, I noticed a stack of unopened letters on the counter. Threatening letters. My heart sank as I realized the gravity of the situation. My granddaughter's creditors were closing in on her, and she was running out of options. I asked her to come over, and she agreed. As I waited for her to arrive, I couldn't help but think about the past. The arguments we had, the distance that grew between us, and the regret that lingered long after her mother's passing. When she arrived, I was taken aback by the look of desperation in her eyes. Tears of regret. She apologized for ignoring me all these years, and I felt a pang in my heart. But I knew I had to stay strong for her sake. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she said, her voice cracking. "I was wrong to ignore you. Please help me." I looked at her, and for a moment, I saw the little girl she used to be. The same sparkle in her eyes, the same smile that could light up a room. But this time, there was something different. A sense of determination that I hadn't seen before. "I'll help you," I said, making a decision on the spot. "But I need you to trust me." She nodded, and I knew that I had to come up with a plan. A plan that would not only get her out of debt but also bring us closer together. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would change our lives forever. As I looked at my granddaughter, I knew that I had to think outside the box. The debt collectors were closing in, and we didn't have much time. I asked her to tell me everything, from the moment she started accumulating debt to the present day. She hesitated at first, but I reassured her that I was there to help, not to judge. She took a deep breath and began to explain. It started with a few credit cards, which she had used to pay for college expenses. But then, things got out of hand. She started using the cards for everything, from groceries to entertainment. Before she knew it, she was drowning in debt. I listened attentively, my mind racing with possibilities. I knew that we couldn't just pay off the debt, we had to address the underlying issues. But for now, we needed a temporary solution. "I have an idea," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "But it's going to require some risk." My granddaughter looked at me warily, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. She was willing to try anything. "What is it, Grandpa?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm going to make a bet," I said, my voice firm. "A bet that could either save us or ruin us." My granddaughter's eyes widened, and she looked at me like I was crazy. But I knew that I had to try. "What kind of bet?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I'm going to bet on a high-stakes poker game," I said, my voice steady. "If I win, we'll use the money to pay off your debt. But if I lose..." My granddaughter's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head. "Grandpa, no. You can't do that. What if you lose?" I smiled grimly. "Then we'll deal with the consequences." "But I have a feeling that I'm going to win." My granddaughter looked at me, her eyes searching for reassurance. But I knew that I couldn't guarantee anything. "Okay, Grandpa," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I trust you." I nodded, a sense of determination building inside me. We were going to do this, no matter what. The next few days were a blur of activity. I made arrangements for the poker game, and my granddaughter helped me prepare. We studied the other players, looking for weaknesses and patterns. We practiced our strategy, trying to anticipate every possible scenario. But as the day of the game approached, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. What if I lost? What if I couldn't pay off the debt? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. We were going to do this, and we were going to win. The night of the game arrived, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had done everything I could to prepare, and now it was time to put our plan into action. As we sat down at the table, I looked around at the other players. They were all seasoned gamblers, but I knew that I had an edge. I had something to lose, something that drove me to win. The game began, and the tension was palpable. My granddaughter watched anxiously as I played, her eyes fixed on the cards. I played tight, waiting for the right moment to strike. The other players were aggressive, but I knew that patience was key. And then, it happened. I got the hand of a lifetime, a hand that could change everything. I bet big, my heart pounding in my chest. The other players hesitated, and for a moment, I thought I had it in the bag. But then, one of the players raised the stakes, pushing me to the limit. I looked at my granddaughter, and she nodded. We were going all in. I pushed the chips to the center of the table, my heart racing with anticipation. The dealer revealed the cards, and the room fell silent. And then, it happened. The dealer announced the winner, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. But as I looked at the cards, my heart sank. I had lost. I had bet everything, and I had lost. The room erupted into chaos, and I felt like I was in a nightmare. My granddaughter's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head. "Grandpa, what are we going to do?" she whispered. I looked at her, feeling a sense of despair wash over me. I had failed. I had risked everything, and I had lost. But as I looked into her eyes, I knew that I couldn't give up. We would find a way, no matter what. "I don't know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But we'll figure it out. Together." And with that, the room went black. I stood up, my mind racing with thoughts of what could have been. My granddaughter looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Grandpa, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I should have never let you do that." I shook my head, trying to reassure her. "It's not your fault, kiddo. I made the decision to play. I just didn't think it through." We walked out of the room, the silence between us deafening. I couldn't believe I had just lost everything. The debt collectors would be coming for us, and I had no idea how we would pay them off. As we walked to the car, I noticed a man following us. He was tall and lean, with a menacing look in his eye. "Kiddo, get in the car," I said, my voice low and urgent. My granddaughter looked at me, confused, but she quickly got into the passenger seat. The man approached us, his eyes fixed on me. "You're the one who just lost the game," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "Yes, I am," I replied, trying to keep my cool. "And who are you?" "My name is Marcus," he said, his eyes glinting with amusement. "And I'm the one who's going to collect the debt." I felt a chill run down my spine as Marcus handed me a piece of paper. "This is the amount you owe," he said, his voice cold. "You have 24 hours to pay it off. If you don't, things will get ugly." I looked at the paper, my eyes widening in horror. The amount was staggering. There was no way we could pay it off in 24 hours. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, feeling defeated. "I want you to do whatever it takes to get the money," Marcus said, his eyes glinting with menace. "I don't care if you have to steal it, borrow it, or sell your soul. Just get it done." I looked at my granddaughter, feeling a surge of anger and desperation. How could I put her in this situation? I should have never played that game. But now, it was too late. I had to think of something, and fast. As Marcus walked away, I felt a sense of determination building inside me. I would do whatever it took to get the money. I would do whatever it took to save my granddaughter. But as I looked at her, I knew that it wouldn't be easy. She was scared, and she had every right to be. "Kiddo, we'll figure this out," I said, trying to reassure her. "We'll find a way to pay off the debt. I promise." She looked at me, her eyes searching for reassurance. But I knew that I couldn't guarantee anything. I couldn't guarantee that we would be okay. All I could do was try. As we drove home, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. What was I going to do? How was I going to get the money? I looked at my granddaughter, and I knew that I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I had to take action. But what? As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed a strange car parked outside the house. It was a black sedan, with tinted windows. I felt a sense of unease as I looked at the car. Who was this? And what did they want? I looked at my granddaughter, and she shrugged. I don't know, Grandpa, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I got out of the car, my heart pounding in my chest. As I approached the house, the door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was tall and beautiful, with piercing green eyes. Hello, she said, her voice smooth as silk. My name is Sophia. And I'm here to help you. I looked at her, feeling a sense of confusion. Who was this woman? And how could she help me? But as I looked into her eyes, I saw something there that gave me hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could get out of this after all. Sophia smiled, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I know all about your situation, she said, her voice confident. I know about the debt, and I know about Marcus. But I'm here to tell you that I can help you. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. How can you help us? I asked, my voice cautious. Sophia took a step closer, her eyes locked on mine. I have connections, she said, her voice low and mysterious. I can get you the money you need to pay off the debt. But it's going to cost you. I felt a surge of hope, followed by a wave of skepticism. Who was this woman, and what did she want from us? What do you want in return? I asked, my voice firm. Sophia smiled again, her eyes glinting with amusement. I want you to do a job for me, she said, her voice smooth as silk. A job that requires special skills. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. What kind of job? I asked, my voice curious. Sophia leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. I need you to retrieve something for me, she said, her eyes locked on mine. Something that's worth a lot of money. And I'm willing to pay top dollar for it. I felt a surge of excitement, followed by a wave of caution. What was Sophia talking about? And what did she want me to retrieve? I looked at my granddaughter, who was watching us with a mixture of fear and curiosity. What is it that you want us to retrieve? I asked, my voice firm. Sophia smiled again, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I want you to retrieve a painting, she said, her voice confident. A painting that's worth millions of dollars. And I'm willing to pay you a percentage of the profit if you can get it for me. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. A painting worth millions of dollars? It sounded like a wild goose chase, but at the same time, it was too good to pass up. What's the catch? I asked, my voice cautious. Sophia's smile faltered for a moment, and I saw a glimmer of something else in her eyes. Something darker, something more sinister. The catch is that the painting is owned by a very powerful man, she said, her voice low and mysterious. A man who will stop at nothing to keep it. And if you get caught, you'll be in grave danger. I felt a surge of fear, followed by a wave of determination. We were in a desperate situation, and we needed to take risks to get out of it. I looked at my granddaughter, who was watching us with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. What do you say, kiddo? I asked, my voice firm. Are you in? She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Yes, Grandpa. I'm in. Sophia smiled again, her eyes sparkling with amusement. Excellent, she said, her voice confident. I'll give you all the details. And then, it's up to you to get the job done. As Sophia handed me a folder filled with information, I felt a sense of trepidation. What had we just gotten ourselves into? And what lay ahead for us? I looked at my granddaughter, who was watching me with a mixture of fear and determination. We were in this together, and we would face whatever came next as a team. But as I opened the folder and began to read, I realized that we were in for the ride of our lives. As I read through the folder, I felt a sense of unease growing inside me. The painting was called The Knight's Shadow, and it was said to be worth millions of dollars. But it was also said to be cursed, bringing bad luck and misfortune to anyone who owned it. I looked up at Sophia, who was watching me with a serious expression. "What's the story behind this painting?" I asked, my voice cautious. Sophia leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The painting was created by a famous artist who was known for his dark and twisted imagination," she said, her eyes glinting with intensity. "He was obsessed with the supernatural, and he infused his paintings with a sense of evil and malevolence." I felt a shiver run down my spine as I looked at the folder. "And what's the curse?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sophia's smile was like a thin line on her face. "The curse is said to bring bad luck and misfortune to anyone who owns the painting," she said, her voice serious. "People who have owned the painting have reported strange occurrences, such as unexplained noises and movements. Some have even reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their homes." I felt a sense of unease growing inside me. I didn't believe in curses, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something strange about this painting. I looked at my granddaughter, who was watching us with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Are you sure we should be doing this?" I asked, my voice cautious. Sophia's expression was serious. "I'm positive," she said, her voice firm. "We need to get this painting, no matter what." I took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay," I said, my voice firm. "We'll do it." Sophia smiled, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Excellent," she said, her voice confident. "I'll give you the address of the collector who owns the painting. You'll need to break in and steal it." I felt a surge of fear, followed by a wave of determination. We were in this now, and we needed to see it through. I looked at my granddaughter, who was watching me with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. "Are you ready for this?" I asked, my voice firm. She nodded, her eyes locked on mine. "Yes, Grandpa. I'm ready." Sophia handed me a folder with the address and a map of the collector's mansion. "Be careful," she said, her voice serious. "The collector has a reputation for being ruthless. He'll stop at nothing to protect his collection." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. We were in for the ride of our lives. As we left Sophia's office, I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were making a huge mistake. But it was too late now. We were in this, and we needed to see it through. We made our way to the collector's mansion, our hearts pounding in our chests. The mansion was huge, with towering walls and a massive iron gate. I felt a sense of unease growing inside me as we approached the gate. This was it. We were really doing this. My granddaughter looked at me, her eyes locked on mine. "Grandpa, are you sure we can do this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "We can do this, kiddo," I said, my voice firm. "We just need to be careful." We snuck past the gate and made our way to the mansion. The windows were dark, and the house seemed deserted. But I knew that looks could be deceiving. I looked at my granddaughter, who was watching me with a mixture of fear and determination. "Ready?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, her eyes locked on mine. "Yes, Grandpa. I'm ready." We crept up to the window and looked inside. The room was dark, but I could see the outline of a painting on the wall. My heart skipped a beat as I realized that it was The Knight's Shadow. We were in. I felt a surge of excitement mixed with fear as I gazed at the painting. We had finally found it, and now all we had to do was get it out of the mansion undetected. My granddaughter's eyes were fixed on the painting, her face pale with tension. "Grandpa, how are we going to get it out of here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I scanned the room, taking in the layout and looking for any signs of security cameras or alarms. The room was dimly lit, with only a few flickering candles to light the space. I spotted a small table near the window, with a vase of fresh flowers on it. I gestured to my granddaughter, and we both moved stealthily over to the table. I carefully lifted the vase, feeling a slight tremble in my hands. My granddaughter took the vase from me, and we both turned to face the window. I carefully pushed the window open, feeling a rush of cool night air fill the room. My granddaughter handed me the vase, and I set it down on the sill. We both climbed out of the window, our hearts pounding in our chests. We found ourselves on a narrow ledge, with the painting still inside the mansion. I carefully reached back through the window and lifted the painting off the wall. My granddaughter gasped as I pulled it out, and we both stared at it in awe. The painting was even more beautiful up close, with intricate details and vivid colors. I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment as I gazed at the painting. We had done it. We had actually stolen the painting. But as we turned to make our way back down the ledge, I heard a faint noise coming from inside the mansion. It sounded like footsteps, heavy and deliberate. My heart skipped a beat as I realized that we had triggered an alarm. The collector must have had a silent alarm system, and we had just set it off. I grabbed my granddaughter's hand, and we both started to move as quickly and quietly as possible along the ledge. We had to get out of there, and fast. But as we moved, the footsteps grew louder and closer. I could hear the sound of doors opening and closing, and the creaking of floorboards. We were running out of time. I pulled my granddaughter closer, and we both started to move faster. The ledge was narrow and treacherous, with a long drop to the ground below. One wrong move, and we would both fall. But we had to keep moving. We had to get out of there before the collector caught us. I glanced over my shoulder, and my heart skipped a beat. The collector was standing in the window, his face twisted in rage. He was shouting something, but I couldn't hear what it was. I just knew that we had to get away. I pulled my granddaughter closer, and we both started to run. We ran along the ledge, our hearts pounding in our chests. The collector was right behind us, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. I could hear him shouting, his voice echoing off the walls of the mansion. We were running out of time. We had to get out of there, and fast. But as we ran, I felt a sense of doubt creeping in. Had we made a terrible mistake? Should we have just left the painting alone? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. We had to get out of there, no matter what. I glanced over my shoulder, and my heart skipped a beat. The collector was gaining on us. He was just a few feet behind, his face twisted in rage. I pulled my granddaughter closer, and we both started to run faster. We were running out of time. We had to get out of there, and fast. As we ran along the ledge, I could feel the collector's breath on the back of my neck. I knew we had to think fast, or we would be caught. I spotted a nearby tree and made a split-second decision. I grabbed my granddaughter's hand, and we both leaped off the ledge, landing with a thud in the branches of the tree. We sat there, panting and trembling, as the collector stormed by, shouting and cursing. We waited until he had passed, then slowly made our way down the tree, the painting clutched tightly in my hand. We didn't stop running until we were blocks away from the mansion, gasping for breath and laughing with relief. We had done it. We had pulled off the impossible. As we caught our breath, I turned to my granddaughter and hugged her tightly. We did it, kiddo, I whispered, tears of joy streaming down my face. We actually did it. She hugged me back, her eyes shining with excitement. We make a pretty good team, Grandpa, she said, smiling. I smiled back, feeling a sense of pride and satisfaction. We had faced our fears and come out on top. And as we walked away from the mansion, the painting safely in our possession, I knew that our lives would never be the same. We would always be the ones who had pulled off the impossible, who had stolen the painting and gotten away with it. And as we walked, I felt a sense of karma wash over me. The collector, who had been so ruthless and heartless, had finally gotten what was coming to him. He had lost the painting, and he would never get it back. And as for us, we had gained something far more valuable. We had gained each other, and the knowledge that we could face anything as long as we were together. We made our way back to Sophia's office, the painting clutched tightly in my hand. She was waiting for us, a smile on her face. Congratulations, she said, as we handed her the painting. You two are the best team I've ever seen." We smiled, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had done it. We had pulled off the impossible. And as we walked out of the office, the painting safely in Sophia's possession, I knew that our lives would never be the same. We had faced our fears and come out on top. And as we walked, I felt a sense of karma wash over me. The collector, who had been so ruthless and heartless, had finally gotten what was coming to him. He had lost the painting, and he would never get it back. And as for us, we had gained something far more valuable. We had gained each other, and the knowledge that we could face anything as long as we were together. I turned to my granddaughter and smiled, feeling a sense of love and pride. "You know, kiddo," I said, "I think this is just the beginning of our adventures together." She smiled back, her eyes shining with excitement. "I'm ready, Grandpa," she said. "Let's do it." And with that, we walked off into the sunset, ready for whatever came next. The end.